Hey listeners, I probably never promoted this, but you can also follow me on Facebook. Just search for Pocket-Sized Tales. Most of you may not know this, but I write most of my stories since I don't have a lot of submissions, which is also why it takes me a while to get a story out. Even when I do get submissions, I try to put my own spin on it to make it a little more interesting. I try to be as creative and original as possible. So if you want to submit a story, you can contact me at pocketsizedtales@gmail.com or on Facebook and search for Pocket Sized Tales. Let me know if you want to remain anonymous. Anyway, let's get on with the story, and as always, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. I also wanted to say thanks to everyone for their ongoing support. Chu leaned on the railing of the second-story balcony of their Airbnb, admiring the beachfront view with the sun kissing his skin. The view was gorgeous. The pictures Chu saw online didn't do it justice. He closed his eyes and breathed in a whiff of the fresh, salty air, bringing back pleasant memories from years past. The warmth of the sun, coupled with the cool, gentle breeze, was exhilarating. "Daddy!" said a familiar voice as Chu felt a tug at his shorts. He opened his eyes and looked down. Beside him was his 2-year-old daughter, Luna. She stood waist-high next to him. Luna held both hands up toward him in a gesture that Chu has seen time and time again. "Oh hey, baby girl." Chu smiled as he picked up the toddler and cradled her in one of his arms. He pointed toward the beach with his free hand. "Ooh, you see the water? You see the beach?" Luna mimicked her father as she pointed toward the horizon. "Beach!" "Yeah, that's right. Very good. Beach." He rubbed the top of Luna's head, then kissed her forehead. "You go blong blong?" "Go blong blong," Luna said. "Uh-huh. You go swimming?" "Swimming," Luna said excitedly. His daughter fought him and his wife at practically everything, especially food, but at least there won't be a problem convincing their daughter to get in the water with them, Chu thought. From the balcony, he could see into their bedroom through a large window. His wife Shona was still setting up her laptop on a desk at the other side of the room opposite the door to the hallway. Shona just got a new job after being laid off for 3 months, so she didn't have any vacation time, but her new company did allow her to work remotely. She did not mind working since her new position was an upgrade from the previous one, and being able to work remotely was one of the perks. Chu wished his wife didn't have to work, but that was beyond their control. So long as they were able to share the experiences together was more than he could ask for. Chu slid the door aside and stepped in, shutting it behind him. "Babe, the weather is perfect. Luna and I are gonna go for a swim. Are you gonna be able to come along?" Chu asked, with Luna still in his arms. "Yeah, I have to check my emails, then we can go." "Put her bathing suit and sunblock on her," Shona said as she clicked and clacked on the keys of her laptop. "See if Luna is hungry, and did you finish bringing everything in?" "Everything was brought in. I'll get something for the baby to eat," answered Chu. After about 30 minutes, the family was dressed and headed for the water. They brought along a cooler with some drinks and snacks, a couple of lounge chairs, an oversized beach umbrella, some towels, and a mat. It was a private beach, so there was hardly anyone around. The family practically had the beach to themselves. Chu and Luna spent most of their time playing in the water and exploring, while Shona caught up on some reading. At the edge of the beach was a plateau surrounded by rocks and boulders. There was a small rocky island about 100 feet from shore across the plateau that caught Chu's attention. It looked like a good place to do some fishing. He was glad to have brought his fishing gear, and made a mental note of the island. They spent 3 hours in the water until they returned to the house for lunch. When they got back, they all showered before eating. After they ate, Luna fell asleep, and Shona went back to work. Chu glanced at his phone. It was 2:31 p.m. He told his wife he was going to do some fishing and would be back at sundown. He then grabbed a bucket, his tackle box, a net, and fishing pole, then headed out. Chu scooped up some minnows and dug around for crabs as bait before his wade across to the island. After he was content with the amount of bait acquired, Chu quickly made his way across the knee-deep waters. He set up his line with a Carolina rig and made his first cast. It wasn't long before Chu made his first catch. It was a sheephead, close to a foot in length and about 2 pounds. Roughly 20 minutes later, he caught a rockfish of some sort. Chu did not plan to keep anything he caught unless they were trophy fishes, so he threw his catches back. To say Chu had a good day of fishing was an understatement. When the day was over, he had 15 confirmed catches, not including the ones that got away. It was dark when he decided to call it a day. In all the excitement, and with his limited experience with the sea, Chu hadn't noticed the water had risen greatly until he saw his tackle box wasn't where he left it. It had been swept closer to the edge of the rock toward the open sea. Chu started reeling in his line, but it was snagged halfway through. It took him a few minutes to get it free. From a distance, Chu saw a strand of seaweed on his hook, but upon a closer look, he wished that had been the case. As he cleaned off the hook, he realized he was touching human hair. Terrified at the discovery, Chu flung the tuft of hair back into the water. He dumped what was left of the bait over the side of what little real estate he was standing on at the moment. After quickly packing his gear, Chu held him over his head as he carefully waded back to shore. It was dark, the water was cold, and the waves were unforgiving. The depths of the water had risen almost to his chest, but he continued onwards. The tide seemed to be rising with every step he took, and the shore wasn't getting any closer. Surely the water couldn't have been this deep even during the high tide, he thought. At some point, the water was up to his neck, and Chu could hardly reach the bottom of the ocean floor. His toes were barely scraping the rocks. All of a sudden, Chu tripped on something and fell forward, instinctively causing both hands to brace himself. He lost all of his fishing gear along with his phone, which was in the bucket. Chu's face smacked into the dark abyss, and he went under. He felt something grip tightly around his ankle, and he flailed about like a chicken with its head cut off. Although he wasn't a strong swimmer, Chu was decent. His heart drummed loudly as he panicked. This must be what it was like to be caught in an undertow, Chu thought. He knew then what it was truly like to be vulnerable and helpless. He feared for his life, but most of all, he feared never seeing his family again. He kicked, twisted, and struggled every which way, but it was no use. The only thing he could do was pray to God. Chu battled his inevitable fate for what seemed like hours. Then, by some miracle, Chu freed himself of the hold by his ankle and managed to get his head back above water. He was beyond relieved when he felt the ground underneath him. Chu took a huge gulp of air and his lungs responded by coughing and wheezing violently. He dragged himself to the shore with every ounce of strength he had left. Out of breath, Chu laid there until he was able to summon enough energy to return to the house. Shwana was watching a rerun of Jeopardy on TV, with Luna beside her feeding on a bottle when Chu stumbled into the living room. He was drenched from head to toe. He looked pale and had a huge gash by his ankle. Behind him was a bloody trail. "Oh my God! What happened to you?" Shona exclaimed with a look of concern. I fell into the water." Chu coughed. "I could see that. I meant, how'd it happen?" Shona hurriedly grabbed some towels and guided him to the bathroom. "We gotta get you out of these wet clothes, then we'll patch up your ankle." "I don't feel so good. I need to lay down." Shona helped Chu out of his wet clothes like a mom did her son. "Yeah, you don't look so good." She placed a towel over his shoulder and wrapped him with another one. He was shivering. She closed the toilet lid and sat him down on top of it. Shona wrapped a towel tightly around his ankle to stop the bleeding. She then dried his head with a smaller towel and felt his head. "You're burning up. I'll get you some ibuprofen or something." Shona stepped out of the bathroom to find the first aid kit from their bags. Then Luna walked in with her bottle still in hand. She took one look into the bathroom and shrieked like she had never shrieked before. There, standing behind her dad, with pale gray arms around him, was a hideous figure of what used to be a woman. Her face was as pale gray as her limbs. Dark grayish veins were visible around the edges of her face. The woman had dark matted hair with strands of seaweed hanging from it. Her eyes were sunken and rolled back into their sockets, exposing only the whites. She was bloated and badly decomposed. Bits of her skin and flesh were peeled off or missing due to the sea life feasting on her. The corpse had on a soaking wet and discolored nightgown or dress that was too dirty to tell what its original color was. Like her hair, it also had fibers of dark-colored seaweed hanging from it. There was water profusely running down from her head throughout the rest of her to the tiled floor of the bathroom. She opened her mouth to speak, but only managed a gurgle as dark fluids spewed from her mouth to the floor. A black tiny crab crawled out from inside her mouth, but was forced back in as she chomped away at the critter. At the sight of the ghastly figure, Luna dropped her bottle and ran away crying hysterically. Then came a loud thud from the bathroom. "What happened?" Shauna asked, carrying the girl back into the bathroom with the first aid pack in hand. Luna held her mother tightly as she continued crying frantically. She didn't dare look in the direction of her father, so she buried her face into her mother's shoulder. Shauna gasped when she saw that her husband had collapsed. She desperately tried waking her husband, but after he did not respond, she immediately called 911. That night, Shauna and Luna spent the night in the waiting room of the ER. They were finally allowed to see Chu after 3 hours when the medical staff stabilized his condition. The whole time they were in there, Luna hid behind her mom. "Scary? Scary? Monster?" Luna kept crying and pointing toward the corner next to her dad's bed. Because Luna was so reluctant to stay in the room, they only visited for about 5 minutes. Shauna contacted both their close families and friends about what had occurred earlier that night. Chu woke up the next afternoon with his wife and daughter sitting next to him. "You're awake. How are you feeling?" asked Shauna. She sounded relieved. "Hey, I think I'm okay," Chu responded in a scratchy voice. He was confused, so he took a moment to scan the room, then asked, "Where am I? What happened?" "We're glad you're awake. Luna and I were so worried. The doctor said you had a really bad infection. He also said he's never seen a fever as bad as yours," Shauna said. She went over the details of what happened at the house and how strange Luna was acting up until the afternoon. Chu said he remembered falling into the water on his way back to the house and almost drowning, but everything else was a blur afterwards. "I had a strange dream that I was being chased by this Mexican girl around the hospital parking lot. You and the baby were in the car. I don't know why she was chasing me, and I don't know why I was running away, but I eventually outwitted her and got into the car. We drove away and she couldn't catch us," Chu said. At that instant, a breaking news alert appeared on the TV above Chu's bed. Sitting behind a desk was a middle-aged white man in a gray suit jacket. "This is Chase Daly from GSTN News reporting. We've just received a disturbing report that the body of the missing woman, Jasmine Gallegos, may have been found. Her parents reported her missing 3 weeks ago when she never picked up her 6-year-old child from daycare. Here is Mariah Davis, who is live at the scene." Chu and Shauna's eyes were glued to the TV as the scene at the studio was replaced by a live feed from the scene of the crime. A young black woman in a floral blouse with a mic stood on the left side of the screen. In the backdrop to the right of her was a barricade with yellow crime tape. Behind that was a large body of water. A handful of emergency responders were standing or walking back and forth, combing the area. "This is Mariah Davis, reporting live from the scene where the body of Jasmine Gallegos may have been found. As Chase stated, she was reported missing 3 weeks ago. Police say a person in the beachfront community found the body while they were out jogging. An ongoing investigation is still taking place, but the police have confirmed the body found at the scene behind me matches the description of Jasmine Gallegos." "Hey, isn't that where our rental is?" asked Shauna, with her eyes still focused on the TV above. "Yeah, that was exactly where I was fishing and fell." Chu couldn't believe his eyes. A photo of Jasmine appeared on the screen, and Chu's heart rate quickened. Goosebumps crept throughout every inch of his skin, and a large knot formed in his throat. He pointed to the TV. That's her, the woman from my dream."